all who have joined in this session. We are very happy to talk to you or interact with you in another Nexus Keynote session. So in this session, we are going to see about how to interact with varied cultures. The title of the session is Culture Perfect. So we welcome you all. Before we get on to the session, we'd like to briefly introduce about who we are and what we do. We are from Nexus, and we have myself, Prabhu, and I have about 17 years of experience in the software industry, and I've been building flagship products and also mentored a lot of teams. Vijayendran likewise has about 20 years of experience in varied industries that includes BPO, insurance, and HR. And he has managed a lot of teams and mentored a lot of teams. And Pradeep has about 15 years of experience in the software industry. He was a senior software architect, and he has worked with top leading brands like Kohl's, Macy's, Staples, Adidas, and the products that he has built has been used by all the leading brand names in the world. So at Nexus, what we do is we help companies become better. So Nexus was founded with a passion to actually impart the knowledge and experience that we have got over the years in building teams, in shaping up the companies, and helping them to be better at what they do. So as what we do, like we have separated into 4 different channels. The first one is Be a Better You, where we have transformational leadership programs, and we design it to the needs of the companies. And Sleeves Rolled Up is where we do in-house business consulting, and we help companies do on improve their process and productivity. The third is the tech mastery. With the rich experience that we have in the software industry, this is particularly tuned at consulting for software industries. And HR is where we provide expert HR consulting in team building and a lot of HR related activities. In addition to the professional activities that we do, what we do is we also have a focus on the community, where we do a series of programs that includes Reach Out, which is an open session where we give sessions that will make people better. And next is the Keynote series, where we bring in leaders from varied industries where they would share their thoughts and experiences on how they it's a conglomeration of thought leadership, and that would help people learn about how they went to their position from where they were. So this Keynote series is where we bring in leaders for for the betterment of the communities. And now about the speaker, we have a very good and inexperienced person, and in fact the space is not sufficient to actually put in all the experience that he has over the years. Right now he is the associate vice president in Insurance Office of America, and he has worked for in some of the Fortune 500 companies like HLL, GE, DuPont, and Cognizant. So in all of his 20 years of extensive experience, he has actually done business process outsourcing, procurement, consulting, business transformation, and automation, and program management. And he has also worked with large cross-functional teams across multiple states in India, North America, Philippines, China, and Latin America. So he has actually interacted with a lot of cultures and a lot of people who fall under different cultures. He holds an MBA in General Management from Bharatiya University, Coimbatore, and is also an alumni of Government Arts College in Coimbatore. He is also a certified Six Sigma black belt certified person, and he is always passionate about Tamil literature, nature, travel, and photography. As I said, this is just a brief introduction, and he has more to his achievements and what he has done. Now we transfer, without further ado, we'll give the floor to Krishnan. We welcome you, Krishna. Now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the introduction. Once again, good evening, everybody. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my good friend Vijendran and Prabhu for giving me an opportunity to present in front of you and share my thoughts with you and have this conversation with you. And the best part is, I'm so happy to have I was just looking at the list of participants and I look a few familiar names and I'm very, very happy to have an opportunity to talk to them after years. Basha, எப்படி இருக்கீங்க? So it's nice. It's a great Saturday evening. And once again, welcome everybody. And I just want to make sure that we'll keep this session more interactive because this is about my experience working with people across the world, working with people who come from different cultural backgrounds, different ethnicities, different languages within India and outside India. So every person's experience is going to be unique. So I'm just going to share my experience and I want to have a good dialogue with all of you and in the process try and see if I can learn something from all of you today. Having said that, we will get started.
Krishna, just a moment.
Yeah. Sure.
So for the participants, if you have any questions or perspectives or any thoughts, you can always Krishna will interrupt frequently, maybe after every slide or a couple of slides. He will pause so that he can take your questions or to take your views and your perspectives. Alternatively, you can also use the chat box to put your questions. What we'll do is at the end of this session, we will go through the questions and Krishna will answer them. Okay, I hope it's fine. Yeah, Krishna, please.
Thank you, Vijay. So before we get started, I just wanted to check with every participant. Are you guys able to hear me loud and clear? Able to see my screen?
Yes. Yes, Krishna. Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay. So I want to talk about and start the session with a couple of quotes. Yadumure Yavarum Kelir. This is a very famous quote by this poet in Tamil literature called Kaniyan Pungundranar, approximately dated about 3,000 years ago. Nobody knows because some of this literature is not dated. So that's why this whole approximation, right? So and if you look at Socrates, he's saying, I'm not an Athenian or Greek, but the citizen of the world. These are things that people envisioned and imagined years and years ago. We are living in an information age today. Pretty much all of us are interconnected. Everybody across the world today is interconnected. Like the saying goes that the world is really becoming a global village. We are getting connected through technology beautifully. A lot of social media platforms, communication platforms, information sharing platforms. It's really bringing all of us together, and in some sort of a way, we are all interconnected. With this kind of a background, our workplace is becoming even more open, even more boundaryless, and even more multicultural. I don't know if I have to say a thanks to Corona. It might sound absolutely inappropriate in this time and date, but what it has done is kind of opened up a lot of forums and interaction platforms like this for people to come together and talk and share their ideas and share their thoughts, which is phenomenal, right? With this kind of a background and a context, it's even more important that, you know, we become absolutely sensitive to people, respect people. This is a word that you will hear very frequently through this conversation, because with respect and mutual trust is what you can is how you really build a relationship, in my mind, right? Any relationship should be based on mutual respect and trust, without which that relationship is non-existent. It's broken. So you will hear me talk about respect multiple times during this conversation of ours, because that to me is the most fundamental element of understanding a culture, being respectful of another culture, and kind of working with anybody across any country or any geography. I'll pause here. Any questions, any thoughts? Anybody wants to share anything on this, on these lines from the audience?
Okay, Krishna, now that, yeah, Vijay here. So now that you mentioned, like, thanks to Corona, of course, we were not able to meet in person. Of course, when we work with different cultures, uh, physically meeting them is not possible, at least for some time. But how do you, I would like to maybe touch upon this subject in the further on slides or in the session, like when you are in the virtual session, like what we are doing now, how do you get to know about the culture, or how to bring out the respect? So if you can also touch upon those, that will be great.
Oh,
When you're not able
absolutely.
to physically meet. Yeah.
Thank you, Vijay.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we have a few you know, points that we will cover in this session about virtually meeting.
Yes.
In fact, you know, if you talk about working with people across boundaries, and working with multicultural teams and working with cross-functional teams across different countries, 9 out of 10 times you're going to interact with them through a virtual media, either through a your video conference or an audio conference, or through a phone call, or through an email, which is the most popular medium of communication today, right? Um, that's by and large how you will be communicating with those folks, because with businesses, you know, travel is expensive across geographies. That doesn't mean people don't travel, people don't interact and meet face to face, but that interaction is going to be very, very limited. So by and large, your interaction with folks across different countries is going to be virtual, and that's even more critical. We understand how we go about it, and we will absolutely cover that in this conversation. Sounds good?
Yes. Yes, Krishna.
All right. So again, nothing fancy. I just put together three, four, you know, cornerstones, if you may, that I think, based on my experience, which helped me effectively work with people from different cultures, which is what I'm calling 4 C's to be effective across the C's, right? Um, Communication is the first pillar or cornerstone. Very, very, very important, in the sense we will talk about it in the subsequent slides in terms of why communication is important. How do you talk to people with respect, with grace, and with the amount of effectiveness that you will need in a conversation with people across different cultures. Second is the cultural orientation, slightly to touch upon Vijendran's point in terms of interacting with people who you've not met before, people who you are not familiar with, people who are from different cultures, different countries. You have no clue about their lifestyle. You have no clue about their country. You don't know what they eat, what they, you know, how their lifestyle is, what they do for work and outside work. Um, it's absolutely critical that we, you know, orient ourselves with those cultures. And it's beautiful, you know, when you get into cultural orientation, it's absolutely beautiful to understand, you know, how each culture is unique, how each individual is unique, and everybody's got something up their sleeve which makes them, you know, live, survive, and compete in this wide, large world. So it's absolutely, to me, it is very, very exciting every time I get an opportunity to, you know, talk to somebody from a new geography, work with somebody from a new geography or a new country. It gives me phenomenal learning and tremendous amount of experience. So cultural orientation to me is another mega milestone. The third one is camaraderie. I think we all can do better and a lot more in terms of being more friendly, being more open. The world needs that right now. If you open any news channel or any newspaper, there's a lot of things going on about racial discrimination, about sexual discrimination, about gender discrimination, things which make you feel very, very uncomfortable and makes your stomach spin. I think all of this can be only overcome through love and friendship, and that can only happen if you are very open, curious to learn about people, and respect again, right? Respect every individual for who they are, for what they are, and as a fellow human being. That makes it even more important. And we'll talk about a little bit on certain do's and don'ts of building some camaraderie with folks across the world when you talk to people and when you interact with people from different cultures. And the last but not the least, courtesy and respect. This is the thread that ties human beings across the world. Being courteous, being respect, because again, these are professional relationships. Some of them can become personal friendships that can extend to a long, long time. But mostly professional relationships, which you spend good quality time working with each other, interacting with each other, and probably socializing with each other after work, and being courteous and being respect during these times is absolutely important, and that is the only thing that connects people and bonds people across the world. I will stop here, and I want to hear from you guys, especially in terms of what's your experience, from the audience. Anybody who would like to share an experience on, any interesting experience, or a little story about how you experienced any one of these in your work lives. Anybody?
Yeah, I will go first. This is Vivek here.
Yeah.
I have few experiences when people from different countries visit our company. So that time we find it very challenging whenever there is difference in the communication. So we speak English and they also speak English, but their accent is very, very different from ours. And the problem here is even while having any meeting also, so that can be a meeting happening in the Chennai location or other location also. So the difference of communication makes the things go in a challenging way. And so we always tend to move into more different ways of communication to be implemented, like mail communication we do, like graphical representation. So this way we used to communicate. And also the cultures. Those people have a different cultures and opinions, and we have a different working styles and cultures. So that actually has a different intakes. So the problem here is we take things in a different note and they take things in a different note. Ideally, having things go in a same line and same path is somewhat a challenging thing. And of course, we have some different understandings of professional etiquette, and sometimes we have issues with in terms of body language and dining matters with the lifestyle, social workplace interactions, and all those things. And the attitude also, sometimes we have a different kind of opinion and seeing. For example, the ethnocentric attitude they display. So these kind of things we see something different, and also we feel challenging at initially. Later on, when we know on all these things and how things goes, then we align ourselves with their attitude, their etiquettes, their lifestyle, and they also do the same.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vivek. That's
Yeah.
That's a very, very good example. And I think a lot of us come across similar challenges and experiences as we start interacting with somebody from a very new culture, right? Because one, there is going to be an accent challenge, there is going to be a language barrier, there is going to be a cultural barrier. And the trick is to be open, right? And not be judgmental of anybody. Um, Unfortunately, we as human beings tend to be absolutely judgmental, and we get to the judgment too quick, which I think over a period of time, as you start interacting and working with a lot of people, you start understanding that being judgmental is not going to really create a healthy working environment. So being very open, being very warm and friendly, and making an honest and dedicated attempt to learn the culture and learn their personality, their perspectives, their work style and ethics makes a huge difference. And in the process, I mean, in my experience, it's always been a two-way street, right? Sometimes it's you will be surprised to see the person on the other side making the first move in terms of sharing their knowledge and sharing their culture and sharing everything with us, which makes it even more easier. But always try and make the first move, be open, be warm, be friendly, and that breaks a lot of barriers and makes communication and makes interactions and relationships very, very open. And that is why communication is the first pillar. With that,
Okay.
let's just
Yeah,
get
I also
going
can.
into
I also,
communication.
yeah,
Sorry,
Krishna.
Vijay,
I also
go
would
ahead.
like to share a couple of things which happened to me. This was my first day in an MNC. The very first day when I joined MNC, I should say that I got a culture shock when I joined, because all through our school and college we were told to address everyone as particularly our colleagues or our supervisors at office at sir and madam during our college and school. But when we went there, when I went joined the MNC, the first shock I got to know was you shouldn't call everyone as sir or madam, always by first name basis. This first shock. The second shock was don't start an email like dear, always say hi. So all the four C's were taught to me on the very first day. It was actually, I would call it as a culture shock to me. No dear and no sir and madam.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Vijay. I think it's a beautiful, again, another beautiful example, and I think all of us who started working in a corporate environment would have experienced this, right? I was born and raised in Kunnur, which is a very small town in the Nilgiri district of Tamil Nadu. Very, very small town, very closed community. From there, I went straight to work for again, when I started my job with Hindustan Lever, which was in the tea plantations, again, within Nilgiris, not a lot of change from a culture perspective. But when I jumped from Nilgiris all the way to Hyderabad to start my first job with General Electric, huge cultural shock, huge cultural shock. I mean, first time meeting people who are different, who speak a different language. I, at that point in time, did not know any other language other than, I could speak Tamil fluently, English to an extent. I wouldn't say that I was very fluent in my communication in English. Um, Absolutely no, no Hindi, no other language. So, I mean, it was different. It was overwhelming. And after the first week, I really felt like running away. I felt like, escaping that situation and running back home, saying, where did I land? But you all have that little fire in your belly to say, okay, we've got to prove ourselves. We've got to break those glass ceiling and move ahead. um, which is what I think my mentors, my friends, and some of the most beautiful people I've worked with really helped me break that glass ceiling. And here I am, in the industry, working with multiple cultures for the past 20 years. So it's been a beautiful journey this far, and that's basically what I'd like to share with everybody on the call today. Um, Getting straight into communication, right? I would say keep it smart, simple. don't try to overcomplicate your communication. Don't try to pull out those fancy words out of the Oxford Dictionary or the Renan Martin Dictionary and try to throw it into your conversation, right? People like to keep it very, very simple. Make it more meaningful, make it more emotional so that you have that connect. Speak with passion and authority and assertive. So it's, the message gets conveyed in the best possible manner. But simplicity is the key, right? Do not overcomplicate communication. And to Vivek's story, the best way to put forward your point or to understand somebody else's perspective is to keep it simple. And I do not want to um, make it more complex, because the more complex you make, the more difficult it is going to be for you to understand the other person, similarly for the other person to understand you. um, the next one I would like to put forward is manners. Do not, please, please, please do not forget the basics. These are things that we've been taught in our families, by our parents, by our teachers in school, in college, by our society. Do not forget that. And thankfully, Indian culture tends to overdo this to an extent, which in a way becomes a disadvantage as well. But I would say it always helps you err on the side of caution, because it's grounded that, manners and values into you so deep that it becomes so natural for you when you start interacting with people. But please do not forget the basics. Greet people appropriately, say your thank yous, say your pleases, apologize if you've, committed a mistake, or you've irritated somebody. Give that special, and the big one, right? Special attention to pronounce names. Very, very important. And I've learned this the hard way in my 20 years of working with people, right? Because name is an identity. The more you mess up with a person's name, it is like you're messing up with that person's individual identity. So give special attention to pronouncing names. I'm not sure if, how many of you in the call would have, worked with people in the Western world. And I'm sure if for who have worked with people in the Western world, you would understand the first thing that they would ask is, hey, how do I pronounce your name? It is absolutely the first thing, because I know for people who are in the West, it's very difficult for them to pronounce an Indian name. It's not easy. And the first thing they will ask is, hey, how do I pronounce your name? And they will make an honest and sincere attempt to pronounce your name the way it is supposed to be. And that goes a long, long way, because you've established your connect then and there. I just want to share a little tidbit, right? So I had this colleague of mine based in Latin America, and his name was Guillermo Munoz. And it's spelled Guillermo, right? Typically, anybody who doesn't know the pronunciation or a Spanish way of pronouncing the names would call it Guillermo. It's fine to do it the first time, right? I did it the first time. But when I wanted, and I did it the first time, and I said, hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Am I pronouncing your name right? Because I don't think so. I am. And he immediately said, you know what? My name is pronounced Guillermo. And then when he repeated that 2 times, and then I caught it, and I worked with him for like 3-4 years now. And I've never made that mistake, but I see a lot of people around him who continue to not make an attempt to learn that pronunciation. It's simple, right? How simple? I mean, when he teaches you, it is Guillermo. And I've been on multiple calls with him where people will always say Guillermo, Guillermo. He was like, hey, my name is not Guillermo, it is Guillermo. Nobody gets it. And once when we were having a conversation, he was telling me that, Krishna, I don't know why people find it very difficult to pronounce my name. And he said, and again, this was a work environment where a lot of people in the team were from different geographies, and this guy was from Latin America. But, he felt very upset about it, and that made me feel bad. And it also taught me a lesson to say, you know what, you've got to pay special attention to names. It happened to me personally, right? I started off my job in a call center answering phones for Walmart. And at that time, the company wanted us to take an alias name or an American name to keep life simple because all our customers were in the US. We were sitting in Hyderabad answering phones. And I didn't know why it was important to take an American name, and I just didn't want to, right? I said, I'm not taking an American name. I'm going to keep it Krishna. While they were okay, they said, that's fine. I mean, if you're okay, that's fine. And I really found the challenge when I got on the phone, because when I started saying my name is Krishna, the word Krishna rhymes very closely to Christina, Karina. These are all very common female names in the US, right? For no fault of them, they would always ask me, hey, are you a Miss or a Mrs.? It's funny, I'm like, no, I'm a mister. And they will laugh it out with me. But, it's after a point you feel, what's wrong? Why are people not understanding? But, it's personal. So please make an important attempt to pronounce names. We all get irritated, right? When we watch the national news network or national news channels, when people don't pronounce names properly, like instead of Chennai, they say Chennai. Like, what's wrong? You are in the same country. Can't you pronounce Chennai properly? Thiruvananthapuram properly? Um, you know, they just go on. So people who are, accomplished news editors, communicators, journalists, they fail to make this very, very simple adjustment to their pronunciation of names, which is sad, but very, very important. So that's my experience I wanted to share with you. Anybody on the phone have a similar experience like this on names?
Okay. I have a small trivia though. I put it in the chat box. Can someone try pronouncing that the first name of the one which I put on the chat box?
And before people make their guesses, I had a similar one. Like when I was in the US, I went to meet one of my friends who was working in Google. So what he did was he took me to a Mexican restaurant. Out there, they showed me the menu, and everything seemed to be very foreign to me. I did not want to try without knowing what it was. And I've seen the chips, the triangular chips, they call it as tortillas. On seeing the menu, I recognized that this is going to be some sort of chips, and I'll order something that is more palatable to the Indian context. And I told them when the waiter came in, I told the waiter, I'll have one tortillas. Actually, it's spelled as TORTILLA. So I told him tortilla, and then I ordered another item. The waiter was a little bit confused about what I was ordering, and my friend actually corrected it. He's meaning tortillas. And after the waiter went away to serve or bring the food that we ordered, my friend told me, you don't pronounce it as tortillas as it is in the spelling, but you call it as tortillas. That's the way that was completely new to me, because it was almost I was new to the US culture out there, and in fact the Mexican culture as well.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, all of us, I'm sure, would have had some sort of an interesting experience from the menu card, because when you go and visit a restaurant which is not familiar to us, or which serves food which is not familiar to us, we always mispronouncing the names of the dishes. And I think the trick is to ask the waiter or the person who's waiting your table to say, hey, how do you pronounce this? What's this? And they'll be more than happy to do that. I've had a lot of such difficult dishes that half of it I don't even remember, man. I mean, some of it is because it's totally foreign to our culture. it's very difficult to remember some of those dishes, and especially if you go to a French restaurant. Good luck.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vijayan sir has posted one name in the chat box and asking to pronounce that.
Yes, yes.
Is it Travia Saros?
No, trivia. The question is trivia. I put the trivia.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to spell SAOIRSE. I have spelled it. Can you try pronouncing it?
Cyrus?
No. Anyone else want to take a guess? That's a close one. Not Cyrus.
Yeah, okay.
Surshe. Surshe.
Is it Vivek? Yeah, you're
Yes.
close. It's Shosha. It's an Irish name.
Oh.
So if you see the pronunciation has no connection with the spelling as such, but that's how Irish spell their name. It's Shosha.
Shusha.
Shosha. And we have one Hollywood actor also by the name Shosha Ronan is her name.
Thanks, Vijay.
And one more incident on the menu thing. Like as I was surprised, what happened was when I was in the US, we took another American to a restaurant called Dosa Place, and it was his first time out there in the Dosa Place. We took him and we ordered a few dosas, and once it was served, he was just still looking at a plate on how to eat this. He was taking his fork and he was taking his knife and again the spoon. And after seeing that all these things are not suitable for eating a dosa, he just looked up and asked, "How do I eat this?" So all the cuisines that relate to the Indian side is something very odd to them, and their cuisine is something odd to them. It's a sort of a disconnect that we'll have to get in the middle for us to actually work together.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, typically they will always ask you because, I take all my colleagues, all my friends out here to Indian restaurants for lunch or dinner. And, couple of things they get butter chicken, they get naan bread, they get biryani, they get 2-3 things which are very, very popular, but the rest of the dishes, you really have to help them. And they ask you, they say, okay, hey, can you help me? What is this? How do you pronounce this? Where is this dish from? Because they one thing that, over, like I said in the first slide, right? Information, we are in the age of information. So, when I first started traveling to the US in 2016, in 2006, like 15 years ago, people at that point in time, they knew India as a country, but I don't think they knew a lot about our country. I've had people who asked me, hey, I heard that you guys, commute on elephants. And then I've also heard people ask me that, hey, I heard you guys see tigers and leopards always all around you in your backyards. I'm like, no, we don't. And that's when, we have to really tell them that, hey, you know what, by the way, we are not what you think. We have all the modern cars. We have your American cars. We have all your food, right, from pizzas to Subways to Domino's to anything that you name it. They get surprised. And this was 15 years ago. Today, most of them know what we do because thanks to the information technology and business process outsourcing industries, really has opened up the market for a lot of Americans to get an opportunity to travel to India. A lot of Indians work in the US, and we share a camaraderie. So and a lot of Indian restaurants over the last 10-15 years popping up everywhere. So people understand Indian culture today a lot more than it was 15 years ago. And I guess that's pretty true to folks like us back home too, right? I mean, when I would say when like Vijendra and I are classmates from college, When we were growing up, our best exposure to the American culture was probably the Hollywood movies and any Hollywood Star Plus and things like that that we used to watch. But today, I think it's much more open. It's not stereotypical of what you see in a movie. A lot of us have traveled. A lot of us work with people from different cultures and geographies, so we've understood a lot more about people on the other side of the world. So I feel the stage is appropriate for us to take this to the next level. I think people have understood each other. Foundational elements are there. So it is beautiful. All right. So I think in the interest of time, I think we'll have to keep moving. Ask. It's perfectly fine to not know something about a culture or a person. Just ask, right? I think we touched upon this point in multiple examples that all of you shared. If you don't know something, just ask. Don't shy away from it. Just ask. People are more than happy to teach you, talk to you, and work with you on things that you don't know, rather than you shying away and not trying to be open and understanding. That creates more conflicts. Once again, respect. It's very, very important. Try to respect people for what they are. And this point is even more critical in today's day and age. Do not discriminate people on country, race, religion, gender, language, or sexual orientation, because every person is unique. Every person is different. And do not, see and respect in people for who they are, and for what they are, and as fellow human beings. Do not discriminate in any shape or form. And all of us have our own personal bias. We all come with some sort of baggage, if you may, based on our cultural upbringing, our society, our families, and our society in which we've been raised. But we've got to break that bias sooner than later, because that bias does not take you anywhere. It absolutely does not take you anywhere. For example, I just sharing one of my experiences about I think about 12 years ago. Was attending an interview for a company in Bangalore. The interviewer, rather than focusing on what I bring to the table as a professional, was focusing more about my personal interests and traits, which is okay. You want to evaluate somebody for cultural fitment. I'm sure there are HR professionals on the phone who understand that, right? So you've got to really evaluate somebody for a cultural fitment, but don't force fit anything on an individual, is all I'm trying to say, right? So this person was trying to personally evaluate me and was asking me about, hey, what's your favorite book? And I said, my favorite book is Ponniyin Selvan by Kalki Krishnamurti. He's like, what? Yeah, I said, this is a very famous Tamil literary work by this author called Kalki Krishnamurti, and his work is Ponniyin Selvan. Then he goes on to say, okay, hey, who's your favorite musician? I said, I love Ilayaraja. He's like, who's Ilayaraja? I said, Ilayaraja is the king of South Indian film music. And he's like, he looked at me and he just went on with a couple of more just impromptu, non-relevant questions, if you may. And then he said, okay, I'll let you know. And then he walked away. And a few minutes later, another individual from the same company, an HR organization I was waiting, came in and said, unfortunately, I don't think, you fit in culturally within our organization, because we are a very global company. We work with multiple countries and geographies, and I think your thought process is too boxed and confined. I got offended. I walked out, right? I was disappointed. I got offended. I walked out. But eventually, right, here I am sitting in this country, a different country where people don't care what your who your favorite author is or who your favorite musician is. They respect you for who you are. And if you tell them that, and I have told my American colleagues and friends about Tamil literature, I speak to them. I've introduced them to English translation versions of Tirukkural. People love it. They like to learn, and they don't tend to, impose their culture or thought process on you. Neither do they expect you to do the same with them. As far as the relationship is open, honest, and respectful, we're all good. We're all fellow human beings. Just because somebody likes a different type of a music, or speaks a different language, or eats a different type of cuisine, or socializes in a different way than we are used to, does not mean that they are different. I mean, that does not mean that they are superior or inferior, right? Everybody is a fellow human being. Um, so respect becomes absolutely critical. One last point on time sense, just keep that in the at the back of your mind when you're working with people across different geographies. Try to understand different time zones, be respectful of people's time, and try to communicate with them within a specific time zone. I know we are kind of running short on time. Vijendran, how are we doing on time? I think we still have about 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, we have 10 more minutes. Yeah, not a problem. You please continue. Yeah.
All right. I'll pause here. Any thoughts, questions on communication itself, folks?
I
Okay.
think we can move on. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is on cultural orientation. I know somebody's like, I think Vijay was the first one, or Vivek was the first one who made that point, right? Working with different cultures, how do we understand them? How do we get to know them? Do some pre-work, which is very, very important, right? Every time you're going to work with somebody from a different geography, spend some time reading about that country, that culture, that their history, their background, about their people, and everything is available to you on your smartphones today. Information is served to you on your palm. So spend some time reading, do some deep dives. There are enough YouTube videos about do's and don'ts in any country today. Spend some time watching it, right? My sincere recommendation again is for cultural orientation, travel. Whenever you get an opportunity to travel. I know all of us may not be able to afford an international vacation every year or travel to different. If you get an opportunity to travel to different countries, make the best use of that opportunity, learn about that culture. And even within our own country, there's enough diversity, there's enough beauty within cultures of different states, different languages. Travel, learn and meet and interact with people. And that's the only way you can culturally orient yourself, and spend time doing your pre-work. Spend time to know your language, which is beautiful. I think I mentioned some time ago when I started off my career, I knew I could speak Tamil fluently. I could speak English average, I would say, to an extent. I could make up simple sentences, but not very fluent. But, make an honest attempt. When I went to Hyderabad, I struggled. Everybody around me was speaking in Hindi. I made an attempt to learn that language. Interestingly, I just want to share this trivia, right? I lived in Bangalore for about 5-6 years, and I'm sure most of you will be familiar with that city, a very multicultural city, and closer to the Tamil Nadu border. So a lot of people in Bangalore actually speak good Tamil. But I landed up there and I wanted to learn Kannada. So I used to honestly and make an attempt to speak to, rickshaw drivers, my cab chauffeurs and my official colleagues in Kannada. And they would just reply back to me saying, Tamil, I'll talk to you in Tamil. And I would always say that, you know what? Don't talk to me in Tamil because that's a language I know, but talk to me in Kannada so that I can learn the language, and I'll make mistakes. Okay. And it's fun, right? Somebody will just say, hey, what are you trying to say? Have a good laugh. Don't get offended if you make a mistake. Don't feel scared to make a mistake when you're learning a language. But at best, right, learn a good greeting, like your good morning, your hello, your thank yous. Learn at least the greetings in the respective language of people that you're interacting with, And trust me, guys, it makes a huge difference when you address them or greet them in their own language. It goes a long way. And it is not very difficult. Today, if you go to Google, you get pronunciations of different languages, different greetings. All it takes is about 15 minutes of an attempt to, spend that time and understand and learn and address people in their language. And I think we spoke about being curious and open-mindedness in multiple examples. The next one is about festivals and holidays, right? Try to also, when you read through cultures and when you're trying to understand the background and characteristics of a country, spend some time to also understand about what people across the world celebrate and share that celebration with them. Send them a good wish, share that celebration with them, and spread that holiday cheer. It goes a very long way when you are working with folks across the world. And the last point is the most important point. Be yourself. Nobody wants you to mimic another person or another culture or another accent, because people know that you are an outsider. So be yourself, be proud of your values, your culture, your language, and the society that you came from, but also be very open and respectful of other people and their language and their culture, and be willing to learn. All right, I'll pause here on cultural orientation. Any questions? All right. That brings us to a couple of slides on camaraderie. When you're bonding with people, share your common interests. Do not discuss sensitive topics like politics, religion, social issues. Don't get too personal in your very first interaction, right? Over a period of time, once you build a friendship, once you build that bonding, you will see people naturally opening up and talking about their family, talking about their children, talking about whatever. But in your very first, because for us in India, right, it's a very common practice to say, hey, how are you? How's your family? Are you married? Do you have children? But not a lot of people in the world are very comfortable with these questions. So try to stay away from getting too personal. Keep it very generic, common. And then over a period of time, try to listen to people, which is very important in communication, right? Listen, understand their perspectives, share your thoughts, and over a period of time, once you build your personal friendships and bonding, there will come an opportunity where naturally you will start sharing some of your personal information and your family and things like that with them, which is okay, but don't get started on it. Very importantly, do not make fun of anybody's accent, attire, or any sort of physical challenge. It's not right. To me, I do not agree with that, and I do not subscribe to that kind of a perspective. So again, I'll pause here. I know we are at the last couple of minutes of this conversation. Any questions, folks?
Hi, Krishna. This is Ramanathan. I have just posted a question in the chat box.
Okay. Sure. I will look at it, Ramanathan, right after this conversation, if you don't mind. I don't want to switch in between chat and calls, but I will
Sure.
I will definitely respond back to your chat through Vijayendran or through Prabhu. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe at the end, we could just read out the questions. You could just give your views on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That sounds good to me. And I don't have a hard stop because it's a Saturday. I can go on for another 15 minutes. I know we are at the hour, but I can go on for the next 10-15 minutes if you guys are okay. I'm fine to continue this conversation and answer any questions that you may have. Are we okay, Prabhu, Vijay, to go on for a few extra
Krishna,
minutes?
we can. Yeah,
sure, Krishna.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, please.
Perfect. All right. Talking about courteous and respect, greet people appropriately. Again, try to customize it for time zones, which again ties back to your point of knowing your people, knowing their geography and time zones. If somebody is in Europe now, I would probably wish them a good afternoon. People who are in our country, wish them a good evening. If they are far east, wish them a good night, right? It's you just try to understand the time zones and greet people appropriately. Respect the time of every individual. This is very, very important, right? Be there on time, be punctual, and value individuals' time. It's okay if you need some extra time, but always be respectful and ask them if it's okay to take that extra time from them, and just be mindful of people's personal space and time, which is very, very important. Introduce yourself and keep it crisp, right? What I've seen, at least I used to do, was to share long stories about who I am, where I grew, who my family is, where was I raised, where did I go to school, things like that. I don't think you need to keep it as elaborate when you get yourself introduced to a new person. Keep it crisp and prepare in the corporate world what they call an elevator speech, right? Prepare and when I say elevator speech, right, let me give you a context. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this, or I'm sure some of you might have. Let's say you happen to meet a very famous celebrity or a very senior executive in an elevator. When you jump into an elevator and you bump into somebody, and all the time you have is that 30 seconds to a minute of you traveling with them in that elevator. How will you introduce yourself and how will you make an impact in that 30 seconds to a minute? Think about it. It's important. It's critical because we all do. Suddenly we'll bump into some senior official, some senior executive, and they're like, "Hey, how are you?" And we'd say, "Hey, I'm good. Pleasure to meet you. I'm so and so, and here is what I am, and this is what I do." Prepare that elevator speech for yourself and be prepared. It's critical for all of us in our corporate worlds and in our career as we scale up. Introducing ourselves appropriately makes a big difference. Be responsive to communication, especially when people send you a meeting invite or they send you an email. Don't tend to ignore it. Respond to it. At least at best acknowledge and say, hey, you know what, I got your email. I'll respond back to you in 2 days, 3 days, whatever. Just keep people updated that you've got their communication. And if you can respond immediately, that's the best. But if you need time to respond, let them know that you're working on it and you will respond. It makes people more comfortable. And this works across every single geography. Listen, that's the big factor for any communication training. I'm sure, when you talk to people, you like them to listen to you, and the same goes to us, right? When others are speaking, just give a ear, listen, and that's how you learn. Smile. It just spreads positive energy. Don't be nervous. Don't be scared when you meet a person from a different culture or a different geography. Just be normal. Be yourself. Smile. Be happy. Smile. Be open. Be warm. Be respectful. And that's all we need to know. Working with different people from different countries. All right, and don't forget the respect. That's again, like I said, the first and the last step of building any relationship. Respect and openness and friendship. All right, guys, that's all I had. I will now open it up for questions, thoughts, suggestions,
Yeah, Krishna.
and for the next few minutes.
So we have a question from Ramanathan. It's in the chat box. So what he asks is, what are the top 5 things which we shouldn't do while trying to build trust? The top 5 things which we shouldn't do when trying to build trust.
That you shouldn't do. 1, do not fake anything. Be yourself, be individual, be true, be honest. Personal integrity is absolutely critical in building trust. When there is no integrity, then there is no trust. So truthful, honest, be very open, right? Open to listening and open to sharing, which builds an automatic trust in people. So I would rather say three things, right? And respect, absolutely respect, right? So I would say instead of 5, I would say 4. I would say what all did we say? So I said open, honesty, integrity.
Yeah, Krishna, you can see the chat box. So I've just collated
Yeah,
what you have said.
not fake, personal integrity, be open, listening, and be respectful. Perfect. Thanks for summarizing, Vijay.
So any
Okay.
questions, anyone? Yeah. Yeah. Ramanathan, did you get your question cleared?
Excellent, actually. It was already in my, thought, like, probably I wanted to understand from his word of mouth. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramanathan.
Thanks, Ramanathan. All right. Any other questions from folks?
Okay. So
all right. So once again, thank you, folks.
Krishna, I have a question.
Yes,
sorry,
Vijay,
Krishna.
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a question. Of course, it's a question, but it has two parts. The first one, part A, is like, what are the advantages of having a very diverse workplace? Okay. And the second part of the question is, having understood the advantages of having a diverse workplace, how do organizations go about building that diverse and inclusive workplace? So 2 parts. What are the advantages of having a diverse workplace? Number 2, how do I, as an organization, how do I go and build it?
Great question, Vijay. First part, multiple advantages of having a diverse workplace, right? One, you are able to tap into the best talent from any culture, any geography across the world. 2, you're going to have best practices and work ethics and a good cultural makeup of your company by keeping it very diverse. 3, it's going to keep you as much more competitive because you're going to have the best of the breed workforce, which is going to make your company more competitive and more profitable. So diversity it's got 100 positives and I don't see a negative, at least so far. To your second point on diversity and inclusion, it's a very difficult task to accomplish. It's not very easy, right? I just hope if somebody can write an algorithm for diversity and cultural acceptance and inclusion. Unfortunately, it's not, because we are talking about human beings, right? We're working with human beings who are flesh and blood with emotions. So it's not very easy. Even large companies which tend to boast of a huge diversity and inclusion programs have their own challenges. It's a constantly evolving process. In my mind, I think the best way to implement a diversity and inclusion program is by being open, by being honest and sincere and committed to the program, right? Don't do a diversity and inclusion program just because you want to check off a box on your checklist. Be very honest, be committed, and be sincere in driving diversity and inclusion. You will fall down a few times, but you can always pick back up and walk ahead. And be very open and learn. And it's a constantly evolving process because culture is an evolving thing, right? There is a huge cultural difference within the same geography, right? There is a huge cultural difference between the pre-millennials, the millennials, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xs. It's different, right? So you've got to just go through it and understand and learn. And I think being open makes a huge difference. Does that answer your question, Vijay?
Yes, Krishna. Yeah, thanks for the perspective. Yeah. that answers.
All right. Any other questions, folks?
Any questions, or you can also share your thoughts or perspectives or your personal experiences in your. Of course, we have participants here who are working in right now in very diverse workplaces and who meet either over phone or in person with people from across cultures. So we'll be glad to hear your stories and perspectives too.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
Tilak
we-
here.
Hi Tilak. Yeah, please. Hi
Did I
Tilak.
interrupt someone? Sorry.
No, Tilak. Please.
No, go ahead, Tilak. After that, I'll follow up. Yeah, keep it.
Okay. All my 20 years of experience, I was working with medical transcription. In the last 1 year, I joined a billing company, and I joined with an approach that I don't know. And I told people that I don't know, and you have to teach me. So people, took efforts to teach me, and I have learned a lot of things. And I was not ashamed to tell that I was, unaware, but it made me aware. So I felt, telling the truth or, I don't know is not a problem. We will learn a lot of things by saying that we don't know. Only when we say we know, the knowledge closes there. So that's what I felt I should share here.
Thank you, Tilak. It's fantastic. Again, I would like to go back to Tamil literature, right? They say "Kattrathu kaiman alavu, kalladhathu pagalavu," which means, right, what you know is just a bunch of or a handful of sand. What you don't know is as big as the ocean. Very true. All of us know some things, don't know a lot. So it's always good to be open, honest, and saying that I don't know something when you don't know something, and it's perfectly all right to not know something. So great example.
Yeah, yes, Tilak. I mean, I completely agree with you, Tilak, and that's a great way to learn. They say a question is a great tool, powerful tool. What you have when you want to in your thirst of knowledge, a question is a powerful tool what you have at your disposal. So saying I don't know and asking questions, I think that's a great thing. Thanks for that, Tilak. Thanks for that perspective.
Thank you.
So I think Kitu was trying to ask a question. Kitu,
Yeah, just want to add one experience. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, please.
So,
Yeah,
want to
please.
add one experience. So, I had a chance to work with a UK customer. So, in one of the milestone achievement gathering, so he mentioned that Kitu, unfortunately, most of the Indian IT company folks don't maintain that openness, especially on the commitment. Because he was mentioning, like, he was giving one example when he spoke to a manager. He said, "I need this to be delivered in." His first question was like, "When it can be delivered?" The manager said, "Okay, we can do in just 2 weeks of time. In 2 weeks of time, you'll get everything done." And I double checked with him, and he said, "Yeah, that is fine. We can do." And within the next hour, he will go to the meeting room and keep shouting to the offshore team, "You need to get this done in a week." And finally, that will get delivered only after 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So I was surprised to see, like, especially people are not transparent, because if they commit the actual time, if when I ask the first question, how long will it take? If you would have said it would take 4 weeks of time, I can ensure my customers are made aware of it, rather than going have a negative phase in front of them that I have not met the commitment. But that was a very good, though I followed it, that was a very good learning, where I always ensured that I need to stick to it, because as you know, right, when the next layers for different commitments, there would be a polished way of putting things. But at least one thing I learned is, yes, transparency, as you rightly mentioned, Krishna, transparency and openness in saying the facts. So that is very important. And that was one of the experience I want to share, as in the multicultural, diversified environment, especially other than our Indian community. Not everybody I'm saying, but other than that, other cultures, they look for the transparency.
Oh, absolutely, Kitu. Very well said, right? I mean, I have been in a client-facing sales role for at least 5-6 years of my career. And it's very, very important that, like, it's the fundamental of any communication, right? Don't be a yes sayer. Just, sometimes you've got to be realistic in terms of agreeing to timelines and commitments. While when you wear the sales hat, you tend to be a little more aggressive. You want to go and sell more. You want to push things more. But that will not go for a long, it will not have a long haul unless you are backed up by a solid delivery team. So be collaborative with your delivery team to understand what they can and cannot do, and setting realistic expectations always works in a sales process, especially with a customer. And it's not customer from any country. We as customers also expect the same, right? If you're when you call customer service for whatever service that you guys are using, if you expect the customer service person who working with you to give you a realistic expectation of what the problem is, how long will it take to resolve, when will you get a response, and how will that response come to you, right? If they don't, then there is always conflict and mistrust. All right. Any other questions? Perfect, folks. I know I once again apologize. I took 15 minutes over time, but again, it was a pleasure talking to all of you and sharing my experience with all of you. Vijay, Prabhu, and Team Nexus, thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you on this beautiful Saturday morning, Saturday evening, India. So with that, I turn it over to Vijay, Prabhu, and you guys from Nexus. Thanks.
Yeah. So thank you, Krishna. That was a wonderful perspective and thoughts what you shared with us. Thanks for your time, of course. So you spent your weekend with us here. So thank you for it. And there are a lot of key takeaways what we could get from you, like being open, how to build a very diverse workplace, and what are the importance of having a very diverse and inclusive workplace too, and being respectful, being open, knowing about the culture, how to pronounce the names correctly. Great ideas, great takeaways. Okay, so for the participants out here, you can also please share your feedback either here, or if you open your chat box, we have put a link which you can click on the link, and you can also post your feedbacks. Either you can share it here, or you can click on that link in the chat box and share your feedback. Anyone wants to share your feedback right away here, you can do that, or you can use the chat box. Thanks,
Yeah,
Mr. Muthukumar,
thank you very much for a wonderful session, Krishna.
Yeah,
thank you. It was a good insight.
Thanks, Kitu. Thanks, Kanasan, for your feedback. Thanks, Shubkarnan and Ramanathan. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Krishna. Thank you, Nexus.
Yeah. And if you can, Prabhu, you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So you can find our email ID and our company website. You can watch out this space for upcoming programs at teamnexus.in. All our upcoming programs we will post on here, and all the other services you can also see it here. Okay, so if no one has any questions, thank you so much for joining. Once again, thank you so much for joining and spending your Saturday with us here for the past hour. And we wish you all a very happy weekend ahead.